Okay, let's say that you're not a tablet power user. You don't do a lot of insane animation or a lot of sketching or video editing on your tablet. You just use it for consuming content like YouTube and reading like Kindle and the news and browsing Facebook. Let's say that you're in that category. That will probably mean that you're looking for a budget tablet somewhere in the $100 to $200 price range, maybe $250, but not much more than that. The question is, which tablet should you get? Now, you know that brands like Samsung exist, and they create the Tab A7, and that's closer to the $200 price range up to $250. But what about some of the cheaper, like Chinese knockoff tablets that are out there? Are those any good? Well, today we're going to be taking a look at the HelloPro and comparing it to the Samsung Tab A7 to see if it is in fact worth it. Now, I should mention that this HelloPro on Amazon, when you go and you look for, the retail price, will set you back around $189, whereas the Tab A7 base model will set you back only $179. So this is $10 more. Why would I call it a cheap, Chinese knockoff tablet? And the reason is because I got this tablet for $95. You can find deals on the web all the time, and there are a bunch of technology, tablets out there and laptops out there that are always going on sales, these cheap Chinese laptops and tablets, and this one I got for $95. So it really is sort of that lower end, and when you compare it to, the Tab A7, this one's going to be almost $100 cheaper to get. So the question is, how do they stack up? Now, on paper, these things look pretty similar, right? They both have an 8-core processor. This one's got 4 gigs of RAM. I think this one also has 4 gigs of RAM. So they're very similar. The only thing is that this HelloPro comes with 128 gigabytes of storage on the base model, whereas the Samsung Tab A7 only comes with 32 gigabytes of storage. However, with that in mind, there is a micro SD card slot that I will see if I can get you to see here. There is a micro SD card slot right there. You can add in, I believe, up to 1 terabyte of storage in those, micro SD cards, although I think those end up being quite pricey. So that is, it's upgradable here, but it already comes with 120 gigabytes on the HelloPro. Now, let's talk about a couple of the pros and cons here. There are, just like I mentioned with the storage, there are some things that put this HelloPro ahead of the Samsung Tab A7, but then there are also some things that hold it back, right? So one of the few pros that we have here is that there is no camera bump, and I don't know if you can see that, but there is no camera bump here, and it's very common to see, especially on like iPads or some of the more flagship brands or the name brands. It's very common to see a camera bump. See, here's the Samsung Tab A7 here. So it's very common to have a camera bump, which means that when you set it down, it has a little bit of a rock to it, which is just kind of annoying to deal with. And so there's no camera bump on the HelloPro. Like I mentioned, it has the 128 gigabytes of storage. It's super cheap if you can get it on sale. Don't buy one of these things retail just because it's going to end up being, just not a great deal. And then, generally speaking, tablet cameras are not great at all. They're the cheap cameras that they put, they're probably like selfie cameras from other phones that they put as the main camera for the tablets. And it just so happens that the cameras on both of these are pretty horrendous, right? As far as like sharpness and details go, the Tab A7 is slightly better, ever so slightly better, but the HelloPro tablet gives better colors, which I'll demonstrate here as I throw these pictures up. Now, the speakers on both of them are pretty comparable. I put them side by side, playing the same song, and they were pretty comparable. The HelloPro speakers sounded a little more boxy, and they had a tiny bit of rattle to them, which again, if you're looking for a budget laptop or a budget tablet, don't be expecting super high quality speakers. But this tablet just, it had pretty decent speakers, just a little bit of a rattle. And then with the Tab A7, his speakers seemed a little bit more clear, weren't quite as powerful in the lower ends though. So there were some trade-offs. They ended up being about the same. So you get pretty decent speakers, you get 128 gigabytes of storage, there's no camera bump, it's super cheap if you get it on sale. Those are the pros of getting the HelloPro. Now, there are some cons, namely, first of all, if this is not on sale, it's not a great deal. It's just not, right? The Tab A7 is superior in almost every way as far as usability goes. The just overall UI that Samsung has built into their Tab A7, the way they've modified the Android user interface and operating system, just makes this feel and look and just the overall experience is better, right? And so it's a better UI, it's snappier, it's smoother. It has a better screen. Maybe after I wear this one in a little bit more on the HelloPro, maybe it will start to feel a little bit better, but the screen just doesn't feel quite as good to run my fingers across. And I can't tell exactly, but it looks like they have some sort of like screen protector on it that comes with the tablet already. And I think that's what's giving it sort of the weird feel. The Tab A7 will not only be brighter, but it also has a better white balance, whereas the HelloPro is a little bit bluish. It's not that big of a deal. And if it's what you got and you're just looking for a cheap tablet, you might not care about that thing or that kind of thing. The Tab A7 is also slightly thinner and lighter. It's got kind of these chamfered edges, and so it ends up being a little bit more comfortable to hold. And like I said, it's lighter. So it's just an overall easier experience to hold. It feels better in your hand. Yeah, so it's just superior in almost every way. Now, the last thing to mention is that when I was using the HelloPro, similar to when I was reviewing the On tablet by Walmart, this just kind of feels laggy, right? It felt not only not super smooth, but like I would tap on something and then it would respond. And I was like, man, what is going on there? And so I decided to run a Geekbench score, which just takes a look at the CPU and how the processors work. And I was assuming that they're probably using the same processor. Turns out they're not. And the HelloPro got a Geekbench score of 153 for single core performance and then 789 for multi-core performance, which is about half of what the Tab A7 gives you. At 316 for single core performance and 1,439 for multi-core. And again, those are Geekbench scores. They're not the end-all be-all of your tablet experience, but they do give you an idea of how much power your CPU is giving you. And just hands down, the power on the A7 is just better, right? And so when you think about that, yeah, sometimes the Tab A7 is twice the price of the HelloPro, but you are getting nearly twice the tablet for twice the price, right? So that's something to consider as well. Overall, would I recommend getting one of these cheap Chinese tablets like the HelloPro or the other ones that you see online if you're like ordering from AliExpress or Amazon and you see some no-name brand or something like that? Would I recommend it? I think if you're gonna let your kids use it and you can get one for around $100, yeah, I think that's totally fine. I wouldn't recommend this, for myself. I definitely prefer to use the Tab A7. Like I said, it's just a smoother, snappier, more comfortable experience to use than the HelloPro. But it's not a bad deal if you can get one at $100. And I think that's the big contingent that I keep coming back to is just, it all depends on how much you get the HelloPro tablet for, or something comparable to the HelloPro tablet, right? If you can get the On tablet from Walmart for around $100, or you can get some other cheap brand for around $100 and it's got your 8-core CPU and your 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, for around $100, that's pretty good. I wouldn't pay much more than that. I would say maybe up to $150. But once you get up to $150, honestly, it's worth it just to go the extra $50 up to $200 and get the Tab A7 for your budget tablet. Anyway, that's all I have for you. Hopefully that was informative and I didn't ramble on too much. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I do a lot of reviews like these. I give a lot of advice on consumer grade technology for you and your family to help you out with whatever your technology needs are. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much, and we'll see you around.